Okay.
Yeah, you know.
Call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any changes to the agenda? Anyone have?
Mr. Chairman, you do have one resolution that was presented by the Chamber of Commerce for Ag Appreciation Week. This would be item F under consent agenda.
Okay.
Or if you want more background on it, we could certainly put it on the new business.
Either one, anyone have a preference as to whether it's consent or new business?
Consent would be fine.
All right, okay, so we'll make it item F under consent. Any other changes or additions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Move to approve modified agenda.
Okay, second.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, special presentations and appearances. Do we have?
Yes, sir,
Yes.
we do. Mr. Chairman, as you make your way down, we have 3 employees that we're recognizing today. We have one here that has joined us, and the other 2 I'll name out, but we'll make certainly their award is given to them. I'm pleased to announce that William Turner is receiving his 15-year service award. He's a firefighter medic with our Department of Fire and EMS.
Come on up. We're going to take pictures, so we'll stand over here. We'll hold this. Thank you very much. Congratulations. 15 years.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Brad Renault is also receiving a 15-year service award. He's a firefighter medic with our Department of Fire and EMS. And then Karen Ferris is a 5-year service award. She is with our Orange Office on Youth, a child care director with our after-school, before-school care program. Thank you.
Okay, consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
New business. Ms. Amanda, with contract for wireless point-to-point radio maintenance.
Good evening, everyone. In front of you is a memo to award wireless point-to-point radio maintenance contract. On April 4th of this year, we released a solicitation requesting proposals for radio maintenance services for Orange County. We received 1 response in the procurement office, which was from Advanced Network Systems, who currently maintains the county's radio system. Advanced Network has worked with Orange County for many years and has provided superior customer service and support. Funding for these services has been appropriated in the IT maintenance line. If the board concurs, staff recommends awarding a 1-year contract with 4 possible 1-year renewals to Advanced Network Systems.
Okay. Any questions of Amanda?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Amanda, Mr. Chairman, before we, as you approve those fiber laterals for the buildings down here, this is one of those costs that would then cease once the buildings would be fibered up and would be more reliable than the radio network, the microwave network that we have right now. So
Right.
this is one of those savings or reprogramming these costs that we'll see with the fiber
As
network.
soon as we can get Lewis to hook us up. I don't know. Okay, and you have another one.
Yes.
Order contract for landfill operation.
Yes. Staff released a competitive solicitation for landfill operations on March 14th of this year. We held a mandatory pre-bid meeting at the landfill on March 27th, where 4 vendors attend it. The procurement office received only one proposal, which was from our current vendor, RM Soderquest. Cost for landfill operation services is $77,000 a month and 7 cents a gallon for leachate removal for the first 2 years. Funding for these services is budgeted in the landfill operations line. If the board concurs, staff recommends executing a contract with RM Soderquest for a period of 1 year with the possibility of 9 one-year renewals. The contract will begin on September 1st of this year.
The monthly rate, how does that compare to where we are today? Do we have,
It's about a 4% increase. We're currently at, $73,800 a month, which is $600 a year. It'll go to $924,000 a year, and we anticipated an increase, so we did budget enough money in our.
what about the leachate? Is that-
We're up about 40% on that, which is a pretty significant hike, but, provided we don't have another rainy season like we did last year, we should be good in that line too as well.
In terms of the quantity, is it, because of the rain, is it above what we were anticipating, or?
This year, well above what we had budgeted for, because of all the rain. We have an open leachate pond, and typically we get about the same amount of evaporation as do rainfall.
Right.
Last year was an exception, so we had a significant increase, but shouldn't have an issue next year as long as we avoid that.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Just one comment. If they're given this contract, I would recommend that Mr. Soderquist once again be reminded that the gravel in the actual active site is his responsibility, which means keeping the mud off of the public road, which he's had a problem with since day one. He's gotten better, but I would absolutely remind him of that again this contract. Well, public service announcement for the night.
All right, anything else? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, and I think you have another one.
Yes, lastly, we have a memo requesting to go into an agreement with Physio Control for preventative maintenance for its LifePak 15 monitors and defibrillators. Physio Control is the only vendor that provides maintenance for this equipment, so a sole source justification was completed and approved by both the county attorney and county administrator. The service plan quote is for 4 years, paid in annual installments, which funding has been sourced in the medical equipment maintenance contract line for fire and EMS. So it's recommended to authorize staff to enter into an agreement with Physio Control to provide preventative maintenance to the LifePak 15 monitors and defibrillators.
Okay.
How many of those units do we have?
Okay.
How many units?
Nathan?
17.
Okay.
And I take it the life expectancy exceeds the 4-year term of this contract, or at least we anticipate that it will. Okay. All right, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, they said yes.
Okay. I saw a nod, sorry. Well, sometimes these things are on a replacement cycle, and it looks like that it's tied to some number. We can't just, change the number up or down without some impact in this agreement. Is it a per unit bid? Is it a fixed price for anything we ask them to work on, or how's the contract structured?
We've dealt with them for years, and traditionally you can remove units if you're saying per unit. We do pay per unit, so if we
Okay.
have to remove 2 or 3 of them for whatever reason, they allow that.
Okay,
They
so-
decrease it and give us a credit.
Okay, so the agreement is essentially a per unit basis. Okay, all right, that's good. All right,
Very good.
anything else?
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
All right. No old business. Department Director, Constitutional Officer reports, Historic Clerk's Office renovation update. This sounds familiar.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. On February 12th, the Board of Supervisors was presented with a preliminary architectural report, PAR, for proposed renovations to the Historic Clerk's Office to provide space for economic development and tourism staff. This PAR was done as part of the USDA Rural Development Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant process. At that time, the board made the decision not to pursue the USDA program as a funding source. Additionally, the board expressed concerns over the proposed design in both estimated cost and magnitude of the alterations to the historic structure. Staff is instructed to work with Supervisor Crozier to develop a cost-effective design that would accommodate the needs of the economic development and tourism staff while maintaining the integrity of the structure as a historic asset to the county. Staff is proposing to proceed with the renovations in 2 phases. The first phase will consist of lead and asbestos abatement, HVAC upgrades, electrical upgrades, roof replacement, fire alarm panel, ADA compliance, site work, and minor alterations to the front portion of the building. Phase 2 will consist of renovating the rear section of the building to create a kitchen and conference room. Attached is a proposed design for your consideration. Also attached is a asbestos report that was done earlier in May. Staff has identified a VASCAP contract, UCP UMW 16525 through the University of Mary Washington for miscellaneous building alterations and remodeling services from Abbey Construction in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Staff is proposing to use this contract to procure design-build services for the proposed renovations. If the board approves, staff would work with Abbey Construction to develop a proposal and cost estimate that will be presented to the board for consideration at future board meeting. If you look at the plan that's attached, working with Supervisor Crozier, we are maintaining the current layout of the building. We are basically just cleaning everything up, furring out the walls, new electrical, HVAC, flooring, and keeping as much of the interior doors and hardware as allowed. So pretty much everything stays the same. New fixtures, lighting, required fire alarm panel, and site work on the outside.
Is it your plan to get bids or quotes for both phases, or just phase 1 at this point, or what are you thinking?
Just phase 1, I will get pricing for phase 2, because we will most likely program that in the CIP immediately.
And the one thing that's shown on here that we've still been discussing is this HVAC equipment.
Yes.
And that's something that Abbey, as well as other companies, would look at. I still have a concern that the traditional HVAC equipment with ductwork and everything is, one, not the most cost-effective, and 2, intrusive in the space.
Are there ducts in there now? I can't.
There's ducts in there now, and the unit is in the basement.
It's for lack of a better term, it's shoehorned in there. It's not
Yeah.
ideal. You can't really use it the way it is right now.
No, it's,
So potentially that even in phase 1, there would be the demolition of that, removal of that, and replacing it with whichever.
some type of system, yeah. There's,
And as we discussed with Supervisor Crozier, we'll look at alternative systems and get the most cost-effective system for the structure.
one of the concerns that I have is not just the equipment and the ductwork in there, but you're now taking up space in what could be part of usable office space as well. So, but Aaron's worked diligently to come up with this.
And I will note that we did, there were some questions about utilities at the earlier meeting. We verified verify that there is sewer that is intact. That was our biggest concern. And the water line is right off Main Street, so the town did recommend that we would replace that section of water line coming into the building.
Okay, and they,
Approximately 25 feet.
they gave you in writing that the sewer line's actually intact?
We did a dye test, so we
Okay.
traced it out, so it comes out, whether there needs to be repairs to the sewer line in the building,
That-
remains to
but-
be
But on the exterior, it is
It is
actually
hooked up
connected?
to town sewer.
On the asbestos, you comment on that, I mean, I didn't, it didn't sound like there's much of a removal that.
No, there's not.
At this point, there,
It's pretty much confined to the adhesive for the flooring, some of the flooring material in there, and the windows, the glazing on the windows.
and is that something that this contractor from, would handle as part of
They
their agreement?
should be able to, if not, I've found another company that has a backup contract that we can
Okay.
use to procure those services as well.
All right.
I've already actually got them in to look at the structure and give me a cost estimate.
If I'm not mistaken, Abbey does, majority of their construction work is historical.
Yes.
So they probably have a capability.
Yes, they do a vast amount of work in historic section of Fredericksburg.
So I guess you're asking to get a quote, a bid?
Yeah, yes, so the board agrees with this proposed layout, and course of action. I will start working with Abbey Construction to come up with a, not to exceed contract amount for design services. Pretty, basic design services and construction services, and it'll be a time and materials rate, basically, when we execute this contract. So I'll come back to the board with a not to exceed price from them and execute both the contract and the proposal at that time.
Any other questions for Aaron?
Aaron, is there still, any records stored in there, or has that all been cleared out?
The treasurer stores current records, nothing historical that I'm aware of. Treasurer has a space in there, the commissioner has a space in there, and then the county has a large storage space in there.
What happens to
Um,
that material?
I have a few suggestions.
Oh, okay.
That will.
We'll have a
forthcoming.
plan, it sounds
Yes,
like.
The
yes.
county's materials are some admin records, but then there's some computer pieces and parts. Some hardware.
There's some junk over there.
I was gonna say, last time I looked in there, that would be my character.
Yes.
And is any of that down in the basement, or is it all on the main floor?
It's on the main floor.
Yeah, I think it's
Now, the basement was only lawnmowers and weed eaters, that type of thing. I think it's all gone now, but yeah, it was all,
all right, anybody wanna make a motion that we, move to get quotes and bids and designs?
I will.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Ed.
All right. County Attorney report?
Just want to report that I have no report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. County Administrator's report.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I have one item to you all. Since assuming becoming a subdivision agent, I've been in a mode with Sandra Thornton, the planning services manager, of approving plats, or she approves pretty routine ones on my behalf. I think I've communicated to the board that there's some administrative issues with this. I guess a better way is how to control access management on certain road classifications. And to boil it down, I won't go through the entire memo, but there are some restrictions in place in our subdivision ordinance that actually exceed VDOT standards, essentially distance between road curb cuts, as I call them, or road
One could
access.
argue conflict with.
Conflict, and it was a bit of a moving target trying to find where our numbers may have originated from versus what we could find from VDOT. And I think that the solution here, in talking with board members, it probably is just to have it mean whatever VDOT requires would be satisfied for the subdivision ordinance, and that we would then move on. The only other thing is that some of these lots that would be served by a private road, that the lots on the road couldn't have individual driveways. Everything would have to be accessed off that road. So that's the recommendation. And then the idea would be, if you all agree with this, then we would transmit this to the planning commission and start the amendment process.
Okay. Any questions, Brian, about this?
I think this makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So make a motion.
I would say
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of sending this forward to the planning commission, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you, gentlemen. Oh, one other housekeeping matter, there was one other amendment that we're working on, is for the plan development, mixed use. The GWAP, remember, there was some things, and Sandra and I have worked through, I think, some edits. They're gonna go to the county attorney and Eric Lansing, and we should have this, at least a working draft to you all with June 25th meeting to take a look at.
All right. Board comment, anyone?
Yes. I'd like to ask that we, create a resolution for Henry Carter, and that he serve the county as a tax person for such a long time. Performed other things for the county and the town.
Okay. All right. Any other board comment?
On a light note, I went out today to the brand-new disc golf course and played around. And I completed the round and I was pleased to find that I had the clubhouse lead,
Was there anyone else there?
until it dawned on me that I was playing by myself. And there's no clubhouse.
I like that game.
But
Let me know when you're not gonna be.
I started off with a triple bogey on the first hole and lost my frisbee in the bushes for about 20 minutes.
At least it's bigger than
But
a
there
golf
are some
ball.
wild raspberries growing, so that was nice. But no, they've done Parks and Rec, they've done a great job. It was a lot of fun, and
Yeah,
it's good exercise, and
nice.
the galleries were small, but,
And the payday was smaller, so.
no one was leaning out of the buildings pointing at me and laughing, so I thought that was pretty good.
That's good.
And you didn't bean anybody?
I didn't bean anybody, no one beaned me,
And they just reminded there would be an opening, kind of a ceremonial opening next Tuesday.
The official grand opening will be next Tuesday
And Mr.
at 5
Johnson
o'clock.
has been invited with golfing attire, knickers and a tam o' shanter to,
Are you forming a league? Is that the next circle?
but Phil's here, but I also give a shout out to the EDA, because they were really instrumental in kind of getting this thing going, and then Tim and Jason took it from there for sure.
Okay. Any other board comment? All right. Any questions on the information items?
So like, you want to talk about the CIP?
Yeah, let me do make one comment. As you recall, we did not adopt the 5-year CIP as part of the budgeting process, which would customarily be the thing that we do. I'd like to recommend that we proceed to adopt that CIP, recognizing that there are some major capital projects that the school is contemplating that need further scoping work to see what they're gonna be and how they're gonna be, so that we would adopt the plan with those projects that we've already identified and scoped for the county as well as the schools, and then over the coming weeks, work with the school board and school superintendent to do the scoping work that we need to on the other projects that they're just in the very early stages of defining them, so we can't really put them in the CIP at this point with any kind of understanding of what it is. So I guess my recommendation is that we adopt the CIP At our next meeting,
Yeah, when Mr. White and I talked about this, and I came to him, and then to you all, with Stephanie and Glenda, the idea is we need to essentially get that adopted, because we're on the cusp of setting our process for the next iteration in August. So we'll come with a draft of it, with identifying those projects, those major capital projects for the schools that are being included in the next update because of the scoping discussions that'll be ongoing. There are the school bus leases and the regular 570, 585.
567.
I'm getting close. That's in there, that will be as part of the adopted. So the idea is you all would essentially put that to bed, and then we'd move on to next year's. And we'll bring a draft on the 25th, and if you're fine with adopting, you can do it then, or you can carry it forward to your July 9th meeting.
Okay. So everybody all right with considering it at our, the next meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, I made a note, but I lost my note, I guess. Okay, now any question on the information items? All right. Any appointments to boards, committees, commissions, and the like?
Yes.
Nominate Tom Shalusta to serve another term on the Health Center Commission.
Okay.
And I would nominate Julie Zalemaker, Julie Zalemaker to the Planning Commission.
Okay. Any others?
I know I'd screw her name up.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, did you get that? Allison? You got it? Okay.
That's pretty damn close. No, it's not.
It's like a, okay.
All right, any questions on the calendar?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, there was some discussion among board members at the last meeting, wasn't it? About including on the calendar certain other events that
Not Judy.
haven't been historically included on this. These are maybe like the VACO meeting this coming Thursday here in Orange and things. And Alice and I and Susan talked about this, and the idea is perhaps not to, the intent of this was all the public meetings that are, where the public can attend, and not necessarily those that are more informal or social events, that type of thing. So rather than starting to, because if somebody sees this, then the assumption is that it's a public meeting, and some of these are not public by definition. So we're gonna keep it the way it is, and then the invites for all the other events are out there will continue in the way we've been communicating those to you.
Okay, everybody all right with that? Well,
That's
otherwise,
actually communicating a little bit better than the way they've been communicating.
Well, we do invites and all that, is there?
There were, for some reason, there were 3 or 4 things that we didn't have. So that was what brought up the.
well, one of them was coming up this Saturday, the tire amnesty thing, which just
Right.
happened. I forgot how we learned about that, but it was,
Mr. Johnson said he was going on a field trip.
Let us huddle and see if there's another way on the
No, it's
That's
just, what you have is fine. It was
Okay.
just for some reason, things had fallen through the cracks.
is Larry here? Can we blame the network?
Yeah, it was Andrew. He
was Andrew.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen, that's good idea.
all right, so on the calendar, we have scheduling a public hearing for the recreational vehicle for July 9th. Everybody okay with that? All right, proceed to schedule that. All right, we'll recess for closed meeting.
All right. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Orange County desires to discuss in closed meeting the following: consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel with respect to debt collection and subdivision enforcement. And whereas pursuant to section 2.2 3711AA to the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in closed meeting, now therefore be resolved. Board of Supervisors of Orange County does hereby authorize discussion of 4 state matters in closed meeting. Need that as a motion.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, we're in close. You have an item you're adding?
All right, so strike the previous motion.
Okay, where is it? I'll hit it for you.
Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Orange County desires to discuss in closed meeting, well, that was a joke, the following matters. Consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel with respect to debt collection, subdivision enforcement in Gordonsville. And whereas pursuant to section 2.23711A8 of the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Orange County does hereby authorize discussion of for state matters in closed meeting. Need that as the new motion.
Thank you.
So moved. Second again.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
That's right.
All right. Members of the board, to the best of your knowledge, were the only matters discussed in the closed meeting, public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and that only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. Mr. Crozier?
Aye.
Mr. Frame is absent. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. White?
Aye.
And Mr. Goodwin?
Aye.
4-0.
Okay, thank you. All right, it is 7 o'clock, time for public comment. I'll open the public comment period. Anyone signed up to speak tonight?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
We will close the public comment period. Okay. Tonight we have one public hearing. Request for real estate tax exemption by the Hickerman Family Foundation in the business as Piedmont Regional Dental Clinic. Ms. Bradley, are you going to speak to this at all tonight, or if we'll go straight to the applicant unless you have some?
No, I think we had talked about having a work session on our, potential policy for future requests,
Right.
but we didn't have enough time to get that ready for today, and I think it requires a work session.
Okay.
If you'd like me to share some comments on the request prior to the applicant, I'd be happy to do so.
Sure.
Allison was the one that processed.
Okay, good.
So just so that the record can reflect, this is a request for real estate tax exemption from the Hinterman Family Foundation. As you know, they're the nonprofit organization that owns the property and is responsible for overseeing operations of the Piedmont Regional Dental Clinic. They are located off of James Madison Highway in the Tractor Supply Shopping Center. They're kind of on the outside edge of that. This is a request that was forwarded to us by the Commissioner of the Revenue's Office. Based on the letter that was provided by the Hinterman Family Foundation, the subject property has plans to continue being used as the dental clinic. And at the current real property value of $743,600, and at the current tax rate of 80.4 cents per $100 of assessed value, approximate annual taxes, it's just a couple dollars shy of $6,000 annually. That according to the current assessment of the property. So, those are the details I have from the request, but we do have representatives from the Hinterman Family Foundation here this evening that have prepared some information that they would like to share.
Okay. Any questions of Allison before we? Okay. Anyone from the applicant would like to speak, or both, as you wish?
I'm Mary Hinterman. I'm Andre's wife. And I have been a volunteer for Piedmont Regional Dental Clinic since 2 years before it even opened, and for the last 4 years I've been the full-time executive director. So I think I'd like to start by just a quick clarification. The Hinterman Family Foundation is its own nonprofit. Mm-hmm. Piedmont Regional Dental Clinic is its own nonprofit. It's not a DBA.
Okay.
They're simply separate, and I think this is partly why we fell under this clause of the state code. If it was PRDC that owned the building, was coming to you, it probably wouldn't have to come before you tonight. It might have been something that could have been handled, as I understand it, by the commissioner. But they are separate, and we are here and happy to plead our case for the $6,000. So A couple of points about the foundation. It is its own 501c3. PRDC is the only nonprofit that it supports. It is, the building is 100% occupied by Piedmont Regional Dental Clinic. And by rule, we pay rent, and all of the money that is paid in rent either goes back into maintaining and fixing the building or comes back to us as a donation in cash. Because the purpose of the Hinterman Family Foundation is the support for this nonprofit dental clinic that serves our region. The question might be asked why we're only coming to you now when July 1 is actually our 8th birthday. And the reality is that the first 5 or so years were not easy getting this organization up and off the ground. It takes an awful lot of money to get a dental clinic going, relative at least to, say, a medical clinic. We have between $600,000 and $700,000 worth of equipment over there, just in order to be able to do what we do on a daily basis. Another question that sometimes gets asked is, well, what if PRDC went out of business? What would happen to that $700,000 worth of equipment? And the answer is, same thing that would happen to any other nonprofit in the state of Virginia. It belongs to the state of Virginia. It doesn't belong to the Hinterman Family Foundation. It doesn't belong to Andre and I. It belongs to the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia. The next question is, okay, so you have a nonprofit that is supporting entirely this healthcare nonprofit in your community. Is the healthcare nonprofit making a difference? 33% of our patients, that's over 12,000 patients now, live right here in Orange County. 94% of our patients live at or below 200% of the federal poverty level, which is pretty poor. That's the level for Medicaid for children, which is why we picked that level, by the way, because we wanted to be a family dentistry. The kids, remember, there was no Medicaid expansion for adults back then. So if the kids had Medicaid, we wanted to be able to see their parents too. So that's why we picked 200,000. The value of the care that we provided at our rates, Medicaid rates, and we give a discount for uninsured low-income people, is $2,700,000. If those people had to go on the open market at commercial rates, the cost for them for their care would have been over $4 million. That's just the Orange County portion. One challenge that Orange County has always faced is getting dentists here in town. When we started, and I'll draw your attention to this kind of fuzzy, but you can still read it, chart that I also handed out. This is from the Robert Woods Johnson Foundation. Every year they do the county health rankings, and one of the social determinants of health that they look at is the number of dentists per population. And when we started right here in 2011, at the high point, it was 5,580 people in Orange County per dentist, where the state average was 1,760 per dentist. And Robert Woods Johnson Foundation at that time considered it a detractor. You know, it was a social determinant of health that was concerning for them. You can see what's happened over time, and it's not 100% us, but we're definitely in that curve going down, and now Orange County has a nice little green line saying they're getting better. And we'd like to think we contributed in some small way to that. Since opening, we've produced $8,222,745.57 in dental care as of 10 o'clock this morning. Ran that number fresh for you. Medicaid expansion in January of this year has changed how every healthcare-related organization is doing business. You probably already know that only 36% of dentists in the state of Virginia accept Medicaid for kids, and I can tell you that while it's not tracked, the percentage of dentists who take Medicare for adults is approximately half that. I can give you a very simple economic example of why that is, and it also shows you, we bring it up because I think it illustrates what we're doing here in the community. Let's take a very common dental procedure. Your tooth hurts, you want it pulled. So if you go into a commercial dentist, and we actually have to buy this data to make sure that we have it current every year. We buy it from Henry Schein. So to extract, it's a limited exam, an x-ray, and the extraction. $301 is the average. If a patient comes to us and they're low-income insured Virginia resident, we would charge them $164 for that, which is a $45 savings. If Medicaid pays for it, they pay $105. We have 45% off, they have 35% of. And it's hard to figure out how you get your business model together on 35 cents on the dollar. But this is how we have chosen as a society to provide care for our people. And I say thank God, because these people had nothing before. And so we're supportive of it, but yep, we're a nonprofit and we struggle like every other one of them. And every $6,000 makes an awful lot of difference to us. Here in Orange, we've built a staff of 20 dental professionals. Everybody who works for us now, who's worked for us for more than 90 days, makes at least $15 an hour. And I can tell you that our dentists make commercial rates. We provide our employees with dental care, dental insurance, health insurance, a self-funded retirement plan, and higher education if they want to go back to Germana or something. In fact, I'm happy to tell you that Germana has decided to run their expanded function dental assisting course in Orange, starting in the fall. And it'll be at our premises, and there'll be people, I know we have a student coming from Waynesburgo. I have 3 of my assistants going through it, so we're happy to have that here in Orange. Labor is about, like any other service business, labor is the majority of our costs. About 70% of our budget is labor. And for the first time, we put together a budget for the coming fiscal year starting July 1, and labor budget is over $1 million. For PRDC, identifying underserved pockets of residents like low-income veterans or undocumented children and then building programs to serve them is our mission. This is simply what we do. This November 9th will be our 5th year providing free dental care for low-income Virginia veterans. A very popular program. It's even if the staff has to come in at like 5 a.m. on a Saturday, it's still probably the favorite day of the year for everybody that works at the clinic. When we realized that the Orange County children with Medicaid coverage, only 50% of them ever used their dental benefit in a given year, and it's true for the surrounding counties as well, we thought somehow we need to reach these kids who aren't seeing a dentist, and so we started the Exams at School program called Small Time. We're now in 22 schools and Head Start organizations, and the vast majority of these kids have Medicaid. And it's a feeder program for us, but until we were reaching out and making it so convenient for parents, they just had to sign a form, they didn't have to take Billy out of school. These kids didn't have a dental home, and I'm really happy to say they do now. Our next goal is what to do with all that space that used to be occupied by the free clinic in Orange. And what we realized is in the area that's bounded roughly by Charlottesville, Fredericksburg, and Warrenton, there is one pediatric dental clinic with board-certified pediatric dentists, and that's in Culpeper. But you know, their raison d'etre is not Medicaid kids. They see all the kids. And so Medicaid kids have to go pretty far to find a board-certified pediatric dentist except at our facility. And our facility, we're actually getting, I thought when we opened 9 operatories in Orange that we were nuts, and now we don't have enough space. So we're in the grant writing process to add 5 more operatories over on the other side and have them be for kids. So kids would have a separate entrance. In the big TV in the waiting room, we can play Frozen on endless loop and not have my adult patients run screaming out of the building. Pint-sized, chairs and stools and stuff like that. The demand is unquestioned, and pediatric dentists are the dental specialty that takes care of special needs children. And so these families really need service close to where they live. And I am hopeful that this time next year that we'll have 5 more operatories, up to 14 operatories, and the kids will have a special place just all of their own.
Where does that put you capacity-wise? Or does that use up the remaining space at that point?
We're hanging from the ceiling. Actually, a bunch of us who are admin types are gonna end up in the basement. That's life, yeah. One of the realities of raising money through grants for funding an operation like this is we have a very generous society, and many people will help us out with the dental equipment, stuff like that. Nobody wants to buy drywall. And in fact, it's excluded as a funding thing that's even possible for most grantors. Which brings us back to why we're here tonight. The Hinterman Family Foundation will give to PRDC anything that is excess above the rent that we already pay. That money will come back to us, and I may very well need that to buy drywall and to continue our program for serving the people in the community. So I point to that's really, it's a drop down, and it would mean a lot. Finally, neither Andre or I are spring chickens. We've both dedicated a decade of our lives to getting this organization up and running. Andre has personally put over 1.2 million of his own money between the building and bailing us out when we couldn't make payroll and, you know, the heater went off. Andre, but at the end of the day, neither of us feel we'll have done our job if, when we give up the reins, the organization doesn't continue successfully on into the future. That's the definition of our jobs, not just having it going while we're around. So Andre is in final negotiations with Charlottesville Albemarle Community Foundation to, when the time is right, take over ownership of the premises. Now this can be out a while, and continue to run it in perpetuity for the benefit of the citizens of Orange and surrounding counties, always to be used as a health facility for underprivileged families. So we know that your decision here today is relevant only to Hinterman Family Foundation for long as it owns the building. But I hope I've shown to you that trickle-down effect in your support is very important to us with our current structure. But what I'd like to say also, and Andre joins me, is that what you do today may well have important ramifications down the road for organizations like CACF, who will look at today, and if you do approve this request, understand the regard or acknowledgement that you have for the work we're trying to do in your community, and that you see the value, and perhaps encourage them when it's their turn to step up. So we ask for your favorable review of this request. We happily answer any questions that you have, and with that, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have one question. Why the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation?
Because it is a very large, very well-managed organization that is willing to even entertain taking on real estate. Andre spent a couple years going around to the universities saying, well, you have a medical school, you have a dental school, how about we donate this to you, and then over time you provide us with management support, and if we ever hit a rut, you help us out. No. Uniformly, and we've been told, no, all they want to do is they take real estate, they want to sell it. So we had to find somebody who would be willing to take real estate to manage it for nonprofits, for the benefit of the nonprofit, and CACF is all about donor-advised funds. Their community foundation role is to help donors get done what they want to have done. And this isn't done yet, but we are in final negotiations. And nor do we necessarily have a day that we know, or a date when we know it's gonna happen. It could well be when Andre is run over by a beer truck, but it means that there's a succession.
I hope that's not a plan.
No,
I was
I
just
personally want a wine
curious.
truck, but that's neither here nor there.
I was just curious because in your realm of the world, you're in a different planning district than the Charlottesville area.
Well,
It
sometimes
just-
yes and sometimes no. And I was just having that conversation today about this new round of grants for $245,000 a year. Hello, for healthcare. Orange was excluded. Mary's on the phone. Oh, your patients, some of them live there. Yeah, okay. So sometimes we're in and sometimes we aren't. Dave Matthews Band, for example, has been very supportive of us since day one, and their money is managed by Charlottesville. Their philanthropic money is managed by CACF.
That's fine. I was it just seemed odd since most everything we deal with is not from the Charlottesville area.
We know that
was.
it's,
But
not to go
no,
too far
you're-
afield, but Culpeper Wellness Foundation isn't ready yet, and we've been very fortunate getting money from Northern Community Foundation, but only for the work we do in Culpeper. And so I'm kind of straddling this weird planning district problem.
No, and that's fine. That's why
I
I
don't
was just
think I'm the
curious.
only one, but that's why. They're actually the only ones big enough who have a mission that's consistent with keeping this going long-term. So,
Okay,
other questions?
any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Attention.
Okay. Open the public hearing. Anyone signed up to speak?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Close the public hearing. All right.
Well, I appreciate very much the presentation, it was very helpful. Answered a lot of questions, and, I mean, I think the county still has some things to deal with in terms of how we deal with these type of requests going forward, just to make sure we're doing things uniformly and not sort of zigzagging all over the place. But in terms of this application, I appreciate, I mean, I learned a whole lot, so,
Oh, well, thank you.
excellent.
A couple of points that, to spend a minute on. The exemption, were it to be approved tonight, has a 3-year lifetime. Okay, there's a, I guess it's state law. I'm not trying to play attorney here because I'll get in trouble in a hurry, but I understand that we are, typically after 3 years, there's a new application that would be required to this board. And so want to make sure that you understand this is not a perpetual exemption. It is for a period of time as specified by the state. And secondly, it is very closely linked to the use of the property, not the property itself so much as how the property is being used, therefore the service of the community. And so I think this board would have some language that went to the thought of, if we approve this, fine, as long as you're operating it as you are today and going forward. But should that change, at least radically, then that triggers another set of amendments. Just so,
That's very fair.
so
We would understand that. In fact, our bylaws are written the same way.
okay, all right. It's we're not in a position to do a perpetual grant, partly because we can't bind other boards and all these kind of rules. And I looked at the language in the draft resolution, and are you happy with the language that it covers both of the points I just described, or is there something you would recommend to emphasize those two?
Specifically, subsection 3 addresses the triennial application to the Commissioner of the Revenue as a requirement for retention of the exempt status of the property. And subsection 5 indicates that the continuance of the exemption is contingent on the continued use of the property in accordance with the purpose for which the foundation was established.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's explicit.
Okay, because this becomes a matter of public record, and we want to be clear with you and clear with anyone else who's interested in this. Okay. All right. Any other discussion, questions, comments?
I move we approve.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion after that? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Roll call to ordinance.
Roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Goodwin?
Aye.
Mr. White?
Aye.
Mr. Crozier?
Aye.
And Mr. Frame is absent, 4-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you do. It's,
Yes, this is one that's very worthy of
Support.
Thank you.
Support.
And I've watched this thing since it first opened, so
yeah, all right.
been wonderful. Watch out for that beer truck on.
Yeah, watch out for beer trucks.
If you're squeaking wheels, duck or run or hide or something. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.